Hi, everyone. My name is Aliisa Hodges. I am the Director of Sales at Mixpanel. And I had the dubious honor of joining back when we were just a few engineers in a fourth-floor walk-up and a co-ed bathroom. So I have my battle scars and hopefully some wisdom to impart today around growing a company and acquiring customers. Today I'm going to focus on acquiring loyal customers, which I think is really the key word here, not just getting new customers to your site, but getting them to stick around and come back again and again. So it sounds like most of you are familiar with Mixpanel, which is great. For those of you who haven't heard of us, we are a mobile and web analytics tool. We help you track user engagement across devices and across platforms. We've been around since about 2009, so YC class of '09, and most recently we raised $65 million, led by Andreessen Horowitz. So when I joined, we were about 8 people. We've grown to about 240. When I joined, we had a little under 1,000 customers, so these were all self-service customers. We had no sales, no marketing, no support, no sales engineering, people just coming to our site and swiping their credit card. We managed to get 1,000 that way, which is pretty awesome. And since I've joined, we've almost quadrupled that number, so now we've got about 3,500 customers, and we've 10x the amount of data points we collect each month, which is an important metric for us internally. So who are those customers? We work with lots of different companies across different verticals, different stages in their company, startups you've never heard of, really sexy companies like Uber and Hotel Tonight and Stripe and Twitch, all the way up to the enterprises of the world like Amazon and Microsoft. So today I'm going to talk about how do you get customers like this? What did Mixpanel do right? How did we attract these big logos to stick around for so long? The cool part about being in sales at a company that is selling a user engagement tool is I get to learn from our clients as well. So I've worked with them and helped them grow their user base as well. So I'm going to talk about lessons learned from Mixpanel and lessons I've gleaned from our super innovative clients. So lesson number 1, pay attention to the sign-up funnel. So the sign-up funnel is your landing page, especially if you're on mobile. You want to make sure that that flow is as streamlined as possible. This is the Mixpanel sign-up form. It is super minimal, right? We've got name, email, password, and if product had their way or if engineering had their way, this would be it. If sales had their way, this would be about 25 fields long. So we've had to compromise. And a big part of creating a sleek sign-up funnel is compromising between engineering and product. So we actually have a few more fields that are all optional after this form, and this has been a long, ongoing compromise across the organization. If you're on mobile, it's even more important that this sign-up process is really streamlined. For whatever reason, we've accepted that when we open a mobile app on our phone, we're fine authenticating. So a lot of mobile apps have that first authentication step as their landing page, and I think this is great. Why not get all that data about your users? You can engage with them. You can see them cross-device. Authentication is great. Now, to social auth or to not social auth. A lot of people I speak with think that adding a Facebook social auth means you're giving away your branding, and they don't want the very first branding you see on that first app launch to be Facebook, and that makes sense. But let's think about the trade-offs. You have lower login failure, you have greater conversion, and what I think is the best part is you get lots of data about your customers. So you can find out their gender, their age, their likes, their interests, number of friends they have. And what I've seen at Mixpanel is that can be tremendously valuable. So my advice here is experiment. Figure out the impact that social auth has on your conversion rates and determine whether or not if this is meaningful, compromise with marketing, and figure out the best way to have the best of both worlds. So what can you do with all that juicy data about your customers? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. And this is something I say a lot, which is focus not on user quantity, but on quality. So it's not just about the top of the funnel and acquiring all the customers you can. It's about acquiring high-quality users that will come back again and again. So if we know things about our users, like their age and their referral source and their likes, their interests, what features they've clicked on, what promotion they came from, we can figure out how to find more users like them. So the most important thing is to dig into retention and understand your cohorts who are most engaged. What qualities do they share? This will let you target more users just like them. Who in the room is an enterprise SaaS company? Good number of you. So you guys have probably heard of this concept of customer success or customer happiness. I will admit at Mixpanel, it took us a little while to figure this out. I think we were a little slow to the game there. This is really valuable. You've acquired these loyal users, hang on to them. Give them lots of resources. Make them really happy because they will be your biggest advocates. And I'll jump into that in a second. But keeping happy customers and getting word of mouth is by far and away the best acquisition strategy. So don't ignore churn. Keep those customers happy. If you are a consumer company and maybe customer success is not the way to go, you can still focus on retention. So Fred Wilson coined this 30-10-10 rule, which has been a great benchmark for a long time. That essentially says 30% of your users will return within a week, 10% will return within a day, and 10% of that 10% will be on your site at any given time. So that's a great benchmark, but it doesn't apply across all industries. So at Mixpanel, we crunched a lot of data across all of our user base to figure out what are good benchmarks. And unsurprisingly, if you're Tinder, your benchmark should be a lot higher than if you're Expedia. If you're a dating app, if you're a messaging app, if you're a game, people spend all day in the app, versus if you are travel or e-commerce, then people are coming once a quarter. And that's okay. Figure out what your benchmark is and target that. Figure out who those customers are who are hitting your benchmark and find more of them. So this is where those loyal customers come in really handy, is when you're asking for referrals. So we just heard a bit about virality and how powerful virality can be in B2B. We certainly know it's powerful in consumer. And similarly, at Mixpanel, you might be shocked to learn that we've had 0 marketing team in our entire history. We hired our first marketing person about, a month ago. And all of our referrals have come either from word of mouth, from these happy customers, or from this little badge that we put in the foot of our website. This badge has led us to acquire thousands and thousands of users. And essentially, it's an incentive program for us. We say, hey, we'll give you some free data points. You put this badge on your footer. And this does a few things for us. It links to our site, so we have awesome SEO. It is a brand building exercise for us. So Andreessen Horowitz actually found out about us this way and contacted us. And it's a great referral source. We've gotten really high quality clients through this referral. So if you're a SaaS company here, come up with a way to get some branding on some of your client's site, those loyal customers you want to leverage, and figure out an incentive program to do so. If you're a consumer, well, it's even easier. How many people in the room use Venmo? Great. When I did that in Canada, it was a big bomb because apparently Venmo hasn't made it to Canada yet. But I'm glad a lot of people in the room use Venmo. So they've done a really great job with virality, right? They've sort of defined this concept of the incentive around the invitation. And it makes sense. If you are a payment site or app, you can't use the site until you have someone to transact with. So they figured it was really important that people invited their friends. Now, for them, the lesson was, well, how many people do we ask you to invite? And what incentives? How much do we pay? What do we give out in exchange? So initially, they asked you to spam your entire contact list. And they found out that even though they got a lot of people clicking the links, they didn't get a lot of retained users. So their conversion rates on that were pretty low. They said, well, what if we asked people to just invite 2 friends? What would happen then? And it turns out people invited their best friend and their significant other, and turns out conversion rate skyrocketed. So they changed their entire model from spamming your network to offering a $5 reward for just inviting a couple friends. And that had a 20% increase on their conversion rate. So you have all these loyal users, and now you probably want to engage with them. Or maybe you have users who aren't loyal and they churned, and you want them back. Well, this is where messaging is really important. And at Mixpanel, we're all about lots of A/B testing. So here's an example of a couple messages that we send out. So one of these is a display ad we ran. So we've got Sam and we've got Amanda. How many people think that Sam had a higher conversion rate? How many people think Amanda had a higher conversion rate? Okay, most people think Amanda. So it turns out that more people clicked on Amanda, but more people actually converted to our call to action, which was to integrate Mixpanel when they clicked on Sam. So we went with Sam. And the lesson here is, don't just worry about open rates or views or click-throughs. Have a call to action. Have a real conversion event, whether it's purchasing, whether it's inviting a friend, signing up, adding an item to a cart. Whatever that call to action is, that's what you should use to determine whether or not your A/B test is successful. Similarly, test the medium. So here's a message, hey, you're about to go over your data limit, you might incur some extra charges. So we experimented. Do we do this in an email? Do we do it in a web in-app? Do we use a push notification? What's the best way to let people know they're hitting their data limit? And we ended up using a combination of both. But here you can see our two different versions of our email campaign. One's a rocket ship, one's a little bit more straightforward. It turns out the more straightforward one was the one that had the highest conversion rate for us to get people to actually come and pay. So that's the one we went with. So Hinge is a really interesting example of engaging with your customers. So Hinge learned that their churned users were actually extraordinarily valuable. It turns out they have a bit of a learning curve. You join a dating app, you don't really know what you're doing, your profile is pretty spare. They found that users who've been using it for a while had this really full-fledged profile. They kind of figured out the game that the more people you connected with, the more dates you got. So they were really valuable users for Hinge. But it was tricky because they found if they emailed a user right away, let's say after 2 weeks of being idle, they got this response, hey, first you find me my girlfriend, now you want me to break up with her. So that strategy didn't really play out well, and they figured, all right, maybe we need to wait a little bit longer. So they tested this out a bunch, and they determined that 30 days ended up being the perfect amount of time. I guess you go on a date once or twice, time to move on in the Hinge world. So lesson here is A/B test your content, your medium, and your timing. Final lesson here is don't waste valuable marketing real estate. So I will admit at Mixpanel, we did this for a really long time. We sent out lots of transactional messages, things like, here's your receipt, or you invite a coworker, here's your project invitation. It was really boring, it was really straight to the point, it didn't really demonstrate our branding, it really didn't offer a lot to the user. And we began to realize for a lot of people, especially on the invitation to a project, this was their very first experience with Mixpanel. So we began to experiment with this and add a lot of interesting content, thought leadership, beautiful branding, pointing you to the right direction in terms of your account manager, our amazing support team. And this had a really big impact for us. First of all, it increased conversion rates on the invitation process, and it sort of got people engaging with our support team more frequently than they had been, which for us was a big boon. So one of our clients that used sort of this extra marketing material in a really interesting way is Cozy. So they had what they called a pretty awkward sign-up process on their site. It was lots of text, not a lot of pictures. It was really clunky. But they were nervous about A/B testing directly on their purchase page because they really didn't want any sort of negative impact. So I said, okay, well, what if we started by experimenting with our email messaging? And we can figure out what works and what our clients like, and then we can put it on our pricing page. They experimented with images and text and button styles, an icon order, and they figured out what worked and what didn't work, and then they could roll it out on their site in a way that only had a positive impact on conversion rates. So those are my 5 tips. Just to run through them one more time. Focus on the sign-up funnel, quality over quantity, ask those loyal users for referrals, A/B test, A/B test, A/B test, and don't waste that precious marketing real estate. So I'm Aliisa. Thank you so much. I'd love to hear from you. Cheers.